Welcome back everyone to Formula 1 2020 and to your race review for the 70th Anniversary Grand Prix. It is absolutely baking here in the UK. I don't live anywhere near Silverstone, but I think across the UK or today it's just a little bit too hot, and certainly things at Silverstone heated up to the max, if you pardon the pun. That won't be the last pun here today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you've not seen today's Grand Prix, feel free to watch it before you watch this review to avoid any kind of spoilers. So there's your spoiler warning for you. And as always, if you are new around here, feel free to subscribe. Hope you enjoy today's review. We've got a brand new little segment at the end, a little bit of a more in-depth look at Formula 2. But before we get onto that, let's talk about the main action, the Formula 1. Starting off with your grid, yesterday's qualifying was a Mercedes masterclass once again. P1 for Valtteri Bottas, Lewis Hamilton locking out the front row. A fantastic drive from our driver of the day, Nico Hülkenberg. P3, could he get his first ever Formula 1 pole position this weekend? Verstappen was in fourth but did a great drive to start on the hard compound tyres. Ricciardo and Stroll on row 3, Gasly, Leclerc, Albon and Lando Norris your top 10. Sebastian Vettel really struggled in Q2, out along with Carlos Sainz. Grosjean and Russell did a great job. Grosjean elevated to 13th after Ocon's penalty for impeding Russell in Q1. Kvyat, Magnussen, Latifi and the two Alfa Romeos lined up your grid. And your race result, spoiler warning, if you this is really your time to leave if you have not done so already. It was not a Mercedes win in 2020. The unbeatables were defeated. Max Verstappen, your winner of the 70th Anniversary Grand Prix. I think a lot of us were just relieved that another car was able to not only beat the Mercedes, but to really challenge them on pace. The Mercedes pit wall couldn't quite match the strategy of Red Bull today. Hamilton second, Bottas third. A fantastic fight up at the front, something we've rarely seen so far in 2020. P4, Charles Leclerc, a one stop for the Ferrari driver. And what I will just quickly say is Ferrari's strategy this season has actually been bang on. It's been one of the best on the grid. Why did they have to wait until this season where their car wasn't good? I don't know. A great drive from Alex Albon, P5 for the Tyre driver. It was then the two Racing Points, 6th and 7th, a little bit disappointed after that fantastic third place from Hülkenberg, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Ocon, a great drive from the Frenchman, P8 for him. Norris 9th and Danny Kvyat for the second time this season, picking up a point in P10. Pierre Gasly really struggled on those second set of medium tyres, did a three-stop strategy, didn't avail. P11 for the Frenchman. Sebastian Vettel, we're going to have to talk about him today, P12, but certainly an eventful day for the German driver. Carlos Sainz, P13, Daniel Ricciardo, P14, a difficult day for the Aussie man. Kimi Raikkonen did better in the race today than he did yesterday in qualifying. Grosjean, an up and down day for the Frenchman, but not a bad drive at all. Giovinazzi 17th, the two Williams 18th and 19th. Kevin Magnussen, your only driver not to finish. If you are new around here, what we do now, we've gone through our race order. We kind of have a bit of a debate, a bit of a rundown on today's action. We're going to let's start from the top and work our way backwards today. So we'll start with Max, we'll end with K-Mag and the Williams. But I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I feel there's quite a lot to talk about today. But before we get into any of the drivers' particular stories, this is the perfect example of why one-stop races are boring. This is the perfect example of where even if you've got a car which is comfortably the class of the field, in this case Mercedes, you can still have a driver that nurses his tyres to perfection, is on slightly different strategy on qualifying, and it all comes together. And I know a couple of the commentators were moaning, I think's the right word to use, and I don't want to be unfair, but they weren't happy with the tyre choices in those early stages. But as the race unfolded, we saw so many cars on so many different strategies. A couple of drivers on one stops, I think Leclerc and Ocon, most of them on two stops, and even a few on three stops. It was a really nice mix. And when you consider we didn't have any crashes, we didn't have any safety cars, that was a really, really good race. I'm an absolute sucker for an awesome strategic masterclass Grand Prix, and I think that's exactly what we got today. But the team that really epitomised the masterclass of strategy today was Max Verstappen and Red Bull Racing. Comfortably victorious at the end, about 10 seconds the gap to Mercedes. And if you look at yesterday, if you look at the whole season in general, you would not have expected a Red Bull to be winning by 10 seconds without a safety car and on pure pace. But Verstappen did such a great job nursing those hard tyres in those early stages. Managed to actually make a full pit stop worth of gap to Lewis Hamilton. Eventually just got out behind Bottas when he did eventually stop. But within 2 corners, down the Wellington straight, round the outside of Bottas. Very nice, or simply lovely, as Max Verstappen likes to call it. And pretty much from there on out was unchallenged. They did a great little cheeky move in just covering off the Mercedes. Stopped when Bottas stopped. Hamilton tried to go long, tried to do one stop, but that left rear, like it was for so many cars today, was just getting eaten up all race long. Verstappen, easy victory. First of the season, will it be his last? That's the big question mark. Spain up next, that usually is a circuit that really looks after Mercedes and gives them a great result. But if it was hot here this weekend, we're expecting even hotter temperatures in Spain, so maybe Verstappen could do a back-to-back. The 2 Mercedes P2 and 3, well, on the face of it, that's not a very good result. They should have won, they had the best car, but starting on the mediums didn't really do them any favours, and that was what really undid their race strategy today. Bottas will be gutted that he's now lost out not only more points to Hamilton, but has dropped down to 3rd in the driver's standings. But for Lewis Hamilton, though it's not the race win, it is still another big leap forward to another championship, equaling Michael Schumacher's record for the most podium finishes in Formula 1. 155, I think that is, but you'll have to correct me in the comments if I'm slightly out there. But again, they're going to win the constructors, they're going to win the drivers. Is it really an awful day? They didn't win. That was it. So Mercedes, to be honest, it was quite nice. Bit of a refresh. I think the majority of F1 fans will agree. Just to see a different driver at the top of the standings. However, it was great to see Mercedes actually on track battling all season long. We've been so used to not seeing them. The only time we see them is the first lap and the last lap when one of them crosses the line. So it was actually really nice to see Hamilton and Verstappen having a couple of fights, Hamilton and Bottas having a fight. Something a bit different, I suppose, for them this season. Charles Leclerc, a 1-stop. This guy this season is a bit good. If you thought he was good last year, I suppose he had a few mistakes at the start of the season, but has upped his game once again. And my goodness, does it remind me of Alonso in 2012 with Ferrari, just dragging a dog of a car to some ridiculous results. And if Mercedes didn't stop Hamilton when they did late on, I really wonder if Leclerc would have been on the podium again. He's been on the podium now in 2 of the 5 races. Like I say, today was very, very close for it to be in 3 of the 5. Is doing a mega job in that midfield. And when, again, you look at where Vettel is, you even look where Alex Albon is in the 2 racing points. What a drive from Charles Leclerc. It was Albon. He was just behind Charles in P5. A strong drive from Alex today, and what I find frustrating is he is proving himself to be one of the best overtakers in Formula 1 at the moment. And yes, he is helped out by the fact that he qualifies lower down than he should, and that is something he really needs to improve on. And of course, being in a Red Bull, it is easier to overtake the likes of your Racing Points, your AlphaTauris, your Renaults, but some of the moves he does, where he makes the overtake, the move on Raikkonen was just ridiculous. Had a great fight with Gasly, and again, you would expect him to get past those guys. But as recovery drives go, he is very, very good at that. I just really hope over the next couple of weekends, he's not putting himself in the position to have a recovery drive. Just has a couple of really boring 4th place qualifying, 4th place races. If he can do that, build up a bit of momentum, that's really going to help him, because although he's got a big haul of points today, and that's really going to help him out, did a great, great drive, I can't help but feel that he should have been there with Max, giving Red Bull a couple of different options. Mercedes did have the luxury of keeping Hamilton out that little bit longer, trying a 1-stop. It didn't work out, and Red Bull did get a little bit of the luck of the draw this time around, but it would have been nice if Albon was there. But a 5th place, a really, really good drive today from Alex Albon. Racing Point, we might as well talk about those together. Kind of in their own little fight, really. Not quite on the back of Charles Leclerc. in that mid phase of the race. At the beginning, they were comfortably in that best of the rest position, but Leclerc doing the one stop really didn't help the Racing Points that were on a two stop. Albon was closing them down in the final stages, so they pitted Nico Hülkenberg, but that didn't really make much of a difference. It was kind of just a very meh race from Racing Point. And what is funny is, despite their 15-point deduction, this weekend they've earned 14 points, so they've only really lost 1 point. Hülkenberg, though, another really strong drive, and for a good chunk of that race, if there was contact between the two Mercedes, Verstappen and the Mercedes, or whoever in front, Hülkenberg would have been there to pick up the pieces. It wasn't to be. Will we see him in Spain next week? We're not too sure. If Perez tests positive again, Hülkenberg's going to be back there, but he said in his post-race interview he's not too sure, but I think certainly this weekend and last weekend has proved he is a driver that certainly should be in F1. And I know a lot of people at the end of last year said, you know what, they think it's Hülkenberg's time to leave. I think this weekend proved that he's still got a lot to show in Formula 1 and still deserves to be on the grid. A driver that I think had a brilliant race, the other driver, along with Leclerc to do a one-stop, Esteban Ocon. 8th place for the Frenchman, and though he's not quite put in as many flashy results as Ricciardo, it's really reeling him in now in the standings. He's also made it into the top 10 after this weekend's result, and it's been a really consistent performer. When you consider he started 14th all the way up to 8th, cracking job from Ocon. Danny Rick, a rare mistake from Ricciardo, was in that early group with the Racing Points, your Leclercs, your Norrises in those early stages. Gasly as well did a great job at the beginning, but then had that spin in the middle of the race, contact with Sainz. Still yet to see the onboard from Carlos Sainz. From Ricciardo's onboard, you can't see Sainz, and it looks like he bins it on him or by himself. Not too sure if that is the case or not, but as it stands at the moment, looks like a very uncharacteristic spin from Daniel Ricciardo. So way down in P14, not the result he was hoping for, especially when you consider he started P5 at the start of the race. McLaren 9th for Norris, 13th for Carlos Sainz. Sainz was another driver that had to pit late on for tyres, and it just never really went his way today. Lando Norris had some great battles, had an awesome fight with Alex Albon. One place better than he started, but with the hotter temperatures, with the softer compounds, it just didn't really ever play into McLaren's hands all weekend long, really. Behind Norris, the two AlphaTauris. Mixed bag of a race, actually, because Gasly had a fantastic start, holding off Albon for way longer than he should have done. Though, doing the three-stop strategy really hurt him. Those second compound of mediums just, for whatever reason, just was not to his fancy and had to do that extra stop. To come home in P11 after all of those dramas and an extra stop isn't bad at all. Will be disappointed after a brilliant qualifying, but Danny Kvyat, after being out in Q1 all the way through to score a point, his second of the season, it's not quite gone his way so far this year, but maybe that's the bit of confidence he needs. A really good drive actually today from Danny Kvyat. Sebastian Vettel, 12th place, a Spinella. I feel like it's a mixed bag because that was a really rookie mistake on lap 1. Binning it while fighting alongside Ricciardo. Ended up screwing Grosjean and I think it was Russell as well. Kind of blocking them as he spun back over the circuit, and Grosjean and Russell dropped a whole heap of positions at the beginning. It allowed, I think, Kevin Magnussen to get up to 13th. Rookie mistake from Vettel. But the recovery drive was actually really good. So, though I think I don't want to give him too much praise because that mistake was really bad at the beginning, a lot of good overtakes there in a car he's not comfortable with, but still a long way off his teammate. Still no points. And if Hülkenberg hadn't have pitted, Nico Hülkenberg would be the lead German in the driver's standings, which is worrying. Vettel, we all know there's problems. We all know he's leaving. But I think Brundle said it in commentary, it really is becoming a messy divorce, which is a shame, considering the last few great years he's had with that team. But a last podium with Ferrari, a last win certainly isn't on the cards this year, but even a podium looks way out of contention for this season. And then we get into that backpack, the two Alfa Romeos, the two Haas cars, and the two Williams. All of them doing what we've said all season long, fighting between themselves. Grosjean and Russell, both of them did a really good job of just avoiding Vettel at the start, but both of them dropped right to the back of the field. Russell pitted early, along with Magnussen and Giovinazzi. Grosjean, Raikkonen and Latifi stayed out a little bit longer, and that in the long run really helped them out. Some great fighting from Raikkonen and Grosjean, those two in particular, doing a good job in that backpack today. Latifi and Magnussen, Latifi really got his elbows out as well today, which was great to see. Magnussen went wide, came back on the circuit, contact with Latifi, and a real off weekend for K-Mag. Got slapped with a 5-second penalty there, ran most of the race at the back of the field anyway, had to do an extra stop, ended up retiring, just for whatever reason, just really couldn't hook it up. Qualifying was a mess, the race was a mess, and K-Mag, who's had a really strong start to the year, just for whatever reason, just didn't work out in Silverstone. Before we go into driver of the day, before we go into F2, and before we take a look at race rating, this is what your standings look like. Lewis Hamilton extends his lead over Valtteri Bottas, 107 points for the British driver, but it's now Max Verstappen in second place, 77 for the Flying Dutchman. Bottas, car number 77, 4 points behind on 73. Leclerc now overtakes Norris to jump in to that top 4, 45 points for the Ferrari driver. Norris drops back a little bit, but still, after that 9th place finishes, just holds on to 5th place over his good friend Alex Albon. Stroll overtakes teammate Sergio Perez. Perez still holds on in the top 10. Ricciardo and Ocon, the two Renaults, now join them in the top 10. Your bottom half looks like this with Carlos Sainz. Unbelievable, the luck he's had this year. 11th for the Spaniard. Gasly moves down 1 place with 12 points. Sebastian Vettel 13th now on 10 points. Hulkenberg moves up to 14th after that great drive to 7th place today. Giovinazzi, Kvyat and Russell have all scored. Raikkonen, Latifi, Russell your top 20. Romain Grosjean drops out of the top 20, also on no points. Fingers crossed Roman can get one so I can put him on the board, put him on the graphics in the next couple of weekends. But your team standings, very, very straightforward. Looks like this. Only one change from last time out, and that's Ferrari jumping up into the top 3. Such is the good efforts from Charles Leclerc this year. 55 points for the Scarlet Ferraris. McLaren, still right in the mix. 43 points for them. Racing Point, as I mentioned, technically went behind Renault at the beginning of the weekend with that points deduction, but after a strong race, back in front, 1 point lost for Racing Point. Haas on 1, Williams the only team yet to score. Right, before we get to driver of the day, race rating, this is your Formula 2 report for the 70th Anniversary Grand Prix. After destroying the field on Friday and putting his UNI Virtuosi on pole position, Callum Ilott did the exact same on Saturday. The feature race, the British driver, the Ferrari Junior Academy driver, ran away with it. 8 seconds at the checkered flag over second place Christian Lundgaard, who struggled with tyres all race long. It was Jack Aitken taking his first podium position of the season in P3, Nikita Mazepin continuing his impressive streak of points finishes in P4, Delatraz P5, Tsunoda, Schumacher, Schwartzman, Guan Yu Zhou and Drugovich rounded out the top 10. And my driver of the day on the feature race was Callum Ilott. And this morning in the sprint race, it looked certain that it would be one of the Premers, either Schumacher or Schwartzman, that would take the victory. But after contact between the pair, Schumacher got away with it. Schwartzman way out of the points. Yuki Tsunoda was there to pounce, the Red Bull young driver taking his first ever Formula 2 victory. Jack Aitken made it back-to-back podiums in the feature and the sprint race, but after another impressive performance in the sprint race, Callum Ilott, my driver of the weekend, and as such takes a comfortable lead at the top of the standings. Going into this weekend, it was Schwartzman who leads. He shovels down to third with Lundgaard in between the two Ferrari juniors. And before we go, one of my favourite bits of the weekend, it's race rating and the best bit, driver of the day. Usually, I disagree with the official driver of the day. Think it's a bit of a fan vote, bit of a joke. Not this time. My driver of the day in the Grand Prix, Max Verstappen. The gap for Red Bull to Mercedes was so big yesterday. To overcome that, to nurture the tyres, fantastic job. Leclerc also, great drive. Ocon would probably be my third pick. Hulkenberg was my driver of the day yesterday, but I've given my driver of the weekend also to Max Verstappen. Not the best qualifying, 4th place, but having a great drive in Q2 to put him on the hard tyres, gave him that edge today. Max Verstappen, driver of the weekend. But I'd love to know yours in the comment section down below. And my race rating, I'm so torn between this. I've gone with a 7. I'd like to give it an 8, but I think I gave one of the earlier races an 8. Oh, it was so good today. I really did enjoy it. I'm going to stick with 7, but it could change. I'm on the fence. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And that is your lot for the weekend. Formula E is on later tonight, but Formula 1 returns next weekend. The Spanish Grand Prix in the middle of August. Could we see Red Bull get back-to-back victories? Will the Hulk return? We will find out in a week's time. Thank you all very much for watching. If you are new, feel free to subscribe. It would be very much appreciated. Also, if you did enjoy, drop a like. Really helps out the channel. Thanks, guys, and I hope to see you in the next one.